Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of SOLSpeaks, the Sol Group podcast dedicated to health and safety. Today we are speaking above all to logistics drivers and to home care technicians and operators, who every day bring Vivisol, oxygen and care directly into patients' homes. Those of you who do this job know it well. Every day you load base units, cylinders, strollers, concentrators, disposables. You move from one patient to the next, across the city, out in the suburbs, sometimes into awkward places. The van is your main working tool, and that is exactly why it has to be fitted out the right way. We are going to talk about concrete things that serve to protect you and the people around you. Because oxygen, and this is our starting point, is not just any gas. Let's start with the basics. Why is oxygen dangerous? Oxygen in itself does not burn and does not explode, but it makes everything else burn far more easily and far more violently. In a normal atmosphere, there is about 21% oxygen. If the concentration rises even just to 24 to 25%, materials that would not normally catch fire, your clothes, a strap, a seat covering, can ignite from the smallest spark and burn with a violence you would not expect. EGA, the European Industrial Gases Association, has documented real incidents with home care vans completely destroyed by oxygen-related fires. Vans in flames in the middle of the road, charred cabs, fire brigade interventions on unrecognizable wrecks. This is why the entire fit-out of the van revolves around one key principle: preventing oxygen from building up where it should not, and keeping it separated from anything that can burn. Let's get down to specifics. How does a van for the OTD service have to be built? Let's go through the requirements one by one. First requirement, the sealed bulkhead. Between the driver's cab and the load compartment, there must be a bulkhead, a dividing wall that is completely sealed. Sealed means that not even a thread of air must pass through, not even a trace of gas. Why? Because if a small oxygen leak occurs in the load compartment, and with cryogenic base units that can happen, that oxygen must not reach the cab where you are sitting. If it did and you switched on even just the heating, you would have created a potentially very serious situation. The bulkhead must also be impact resistant. Think of a sudden braking. If a cylinder or a base unit breaks loose and comes at you, the bulkhead has to withstand the impact and protect you. The anchoring systems and the bulkhead must resist inertial forces of at least 2 g horizontally. In plain words, as if the load weighed twice what it actually weighs and came flying at you. Second requirement, ventilation. The load compartment must be ventilated at all times, even when the van is parked. If you only carry gaseous oxygen cylinders, you need at least 2 fixed openings, grills, not flaps that can be closed, with a total free area of at least 600 square centimeters. If you carry liquid oxygen, the openings go up to 3 and the total free area rises to 900 square centimeters. 1 high up, 2 low down, distributed so as to create an airflow that carries the excess oxygen away. As an alternative, a mechanical ventilation system can be installed, a kind of chimney on the roof, together with a grill low down. What matters is that the air always circulates and that the oxygen concentration inside the compartment stays below 23%. It is also possible, and it is good practice, to install sensors that continuously measure the oxygen concentration and warn the driver with an alarm if the threshold is exceeded. Third requirement, materials. Everything lining the inside of the load compartment must be metal or a material certified as non-combustible. No exposed wood, no carpeting, no linings that could absorb oxygen and then catch fire. The floor must be entirely of non-combustible material, stainless steel or aluminium for example, across its whole surface. If the original floor is wooden, it must be completely covered with a metal sheet. For electric vans, since the storage batteries sit underneath the floor, the thickness of the non-combustible floor must be doubled, 4 mm instead of 2, plus the aluminium sheet on top. Fourth requirement, fire extinguishers. At least 2 extinguishers are needed on board, one in the cab, at least 2 kilos, powder type, also accessible from outside, and one in the load compartment, at least 6 kilos, positioned near the rear door. Why near the door? Because if the van rolls over, it must still be reachable. And in addition, this is an important new point, automatic fire suppression systems are to be installed in the engine compartment, activating on their own when the temperature exceeds a certain threshold. Several incidents have shown that the fire starts in the engine and then spreads to the cab and the load compartment. Having a system that steps in immediately, before the driver even notices, can make the difference between a manageable incipient fire and a disaster. Fifth requirement, load securing. Everything in the load compartment must be secured. Base units are to be restrained with ratchet straps or locking bars. Cylinders go into racks or baskets fixed to the vehicle. Disposable plastics go into dedicated containers. Medical devices must have dedicated housings. Cylinders and base units cannot be secured together with the same system. They have to be kept separate. And all anchoring systems must carry certification attesting their resistance to a load of 2G. That is, as said before, twice the weight of the material the system is holding. Why all this? Because in an emergency stop, a 40-kilo base unit that breaks loose becomes a projectile. And if it strikes another cylinder or the bulkhead, the consequences can be extremely serious. Sixth requirement, signage and safety equipment. In the cab and in the load compartment, clearly visible no smoking signs. On board there must always be the first aid kit, the warning triangle, the anti-spark torch, the reflective vest. And a practical piece of advice, take the cigarette lighter out of the cab. Right. Now that we know how the van has to be built, let's talk about checks. Because a van that is well fitted out on day one, if it is never inspected, may no longer be safe 6 months later. The leak tightness of the bulkhead must be verified with a specific test. A fog generator is used. It is run in the cab for at least 30 minutes and you check that no fog passes into the load compartment. Then it is repeated the other way round, from the compartment towards the cab. If even a wisp of fog gets through, the sealing must be restored and the test repeated. The test must be carried out at an authorized center, and the report with the outcome must be kept on board the vehicle or in the technical file. Periodic checks of the load compartment and the vehicle are recommended at least every 6 months and cover the condition of the floor and the shelving, the operation of the ventilation system, that the grills are not obstructed, the condition of the straps and anchoring systems, the correct operation of doors and locks, the efficiency of the hydraulic tail lift if fitted, the condition of the electrical system and lighting, the legibility and completeness of the internal and external signage, and the condition of the extinguishers, which must have the date of the next inspection clearly visible. The driver's daily checks are just as important. Every morning, before setting off, you must verify that the load is properly secured, that the tires are in good condition, that there are no obvious defects on the vehicle, that the braking system works, that the documentation is on board. Transport documents, safety data sheets, vehicle and driver documents. If you carry liquid oxygen, also check that the tank valves are closed, that there are no gas leaks, that the pressure is at least 1 bar below the opening value of the safety valve, and that there is no abnormal ice on the outer walls of the containers, which could indicate a loss of vacuum. Another good practice, if the van has been standing for a long time, over the lunch break or overnight, with an oxygen load on board, before starting the engine, open all the load compartment doors and let it ventilate for at least 3 minutes. Ventilate the driver's cab as well. This significantly reduces any oxygen buildup. Finally, let's move on to a topic that directly concerns your health: manual handling and unloading aids. A full base unit can weigh more than 25 kilos. A large cylinder, even more. Lifting and moving these weights several times a day, climbing down from the van, carrying them up to the patient's floor, perhaps the 3rd floor with no lift, is physically demanding work. And if it is done badly, in the long run, it will wreck your back. That is why the van has to be designed to make these operations easier. The load compartment must have a height that allows you to stand upright and work without bending over. Every door must have a secure grab handle and a low step so you can get in and out steadily. The unloading aids available are of 3 main types. The first are steps or access platforms, fixed or retractable, which reduce the drop between the van floor and the ground. They may seem a trivial thing, but they make a big difference to your knees and your balance. The second are ramps, which let you slide wheeled containers out without having to lift them. The third are hydraulic tail lifts. These are platforms that lower all the way to the ground and let you load and unload base units with no lifting effort at all. For deliveries to upper floors, the standards recommend using electric stair climbing trolleys, when weights exceed 25 kilos for men or 20 kilos for women. The electric stair climber is an investment that spares you injuries and musculoskeletal disorders. One last note on hydraulic aids. If the tail lift is inside the van, its hydraulic system must be protected from oxygen vapors and kept clean. Any oil leak must be removed immediately, because oil in the presence of enriched oxygen is an extremely dangerous fuel. We come to the last point, and it is fundamental: training. Anyone who drives a van for the OTD service, whether a direct employee of the group or a driver from an external company, must have received specific training. A driving license is not enough. Let's look at what this training has to cover. First of all, general health and safety knowledge, then more specifically, the correct use of PPE, safety shoes, gloves, long-sleeve garments, even in summer, to protect you from contact with cryogenic liquids, high-visibility vest, head protection where required. Next, the basics of ADR with a focus on oxygen, what it is, what risks it involves, how it must be transported. Then, the load securing rules, the loading and unloading procedures, correct manual handling, and further, managing fire extinguishers, the daily vehicle check, safe and defensive driving, the risks of distraction at the wheel, and of fatigue. Finally, and we say it once again, the absolute smoking ban, including electronic cigarettes, on board and in the vicinity of the vehicle. Alongside this safety training, there is operational content. The use of terminals for recording deliveries, good distribution practice for medicines, pharmacovigilance, GMP rules if you carry out filling operations. And who has to provide this training? The responsibility is clear. If the operator is a direct employee, the training is the responsibility of the group employer. If the operator works for an external company, a carrier, a contractor, the training is the responsibility of that company's employer. In both cases, the employer must ensure that the training is delivered before the person starts work. Not afterwards, not when there's time. Before. Let's sum up the key points of this episode. The van for home oxygen therapy is not just any van. It needs a certified sealed bulkhead, a ventilation system that prevents oxygen from accumulating, non-combustible interior materials, extinguishers in the cab and in the load compartment, automatic fire suppression systems in the engine compartment, certified anchoring systems for the whole load, and the correct signage. These requirements have to be verified. Bulkhead tests with a fog generator, 6 monthly vehicle checks, daily check before every shift. For unloading, you have steps, ramps, and hydraulic tail lifts at your disposal. Use them because your back will thank you. And training is an obligation, not an optional extra, whether you are a direct employee or you work for an external company. Your employer must have trained you on all the specific risks of this activity before putting you behind the wheel. Take care of yourselves and safe travels, everyone. See you in the next episode.